Hello everyone, I am Ishan Sarma and today we will be reviewing Cold War foreign policy, and more specifically how certain foreign policy decisions affected tension. Let me set the stage for the Cold War. From 1939 to 1945, the Allied powers of England, America, and the Soviets fought against the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan. This war caused unparalleled devastation throughout Europe and caused a massive shift in the balance of power. The Americans emerged as a new superpower, their industry helping to guide the Allies to victory. The Soviets also emerged as a new superpower, creating an iron curtain across Europe through Eastern European puppet states. These two superpowers soon found themselves at odds with each other, and the Cold War began. The Cold War foreign policy can be generally split into two sections. The first was containment, started under the Truman administration, which sought to use intervention to stop communist growth. The second was détente, which sought to ease tensions between the two superpowers through arms reduction deals and human rights treaties. Foreign policy did vary precedent to precedent, but they were generally in either of these two categories. Containment truly began with the formation of NATO, the first United States peacetime alliance, in order to ensure a defense against any possible Soviet aggression. This solidified the split between the Eastern Bloc and the Western Allies. The United States would also expand this program, instituting the Marshall Plan to help rebuild Europe, facing the threat of communist victory elections across Europe. The Marshall Plan would later expand into Latin America and Africa through foreign aid. The United States also established the UN and invited more members into NATO later on in the Cold War. Containment also sought to intervene and preempt intervention. In 1948, the Soviets blockaded Berlin, which was under Allied control, in an attempt to seize control of the territory. The United States, however, chose to airdrop Berlin with supplies needed for it to survive. The United States also intervened in Korea, instituting a draft and sending thousands of soldiers to the front line after the UN Security Council resolution, which allowed foreign troops into South Korea. The United States also preemptively placed nuclear weapons in Turkey and Italy, which forced the Soviets to send nukes into Cuba. This resulted in the Cuban Missile Crisis, which nearly caused a nuclear war between the two superpowers. However, through masterful diplomacy, Kennedy and Khrushchev were able to negotiate a treaty in which the Soviets would take nukes out of Cuba and the US would take nukes out of Turkey and Italy, and the US would promise never to invade Cuba. Finally, there was the Vietnam War, which the US disastrously intervened in, which after a series of protests and a new presidency, caused the outlook of the United States foreign policy to change. The policy of containment mainly increased tension, but thanks to good diplomacy on both sides, nuclear war did not erupt. Détente, pioneered by Nixon, sought to ease tensions with the Soviet Union. Previous talks had not worked, but Nixon attempted to negotiate, mainly due to a loss in Vietnam and the Sino-Soviet split caused the Union to lose an ally in China. In 1970, Nixon successfully negotiated a nuclear arms non-proliferation treaty, which sought to reduce the spread of nuclear weapons. The Helsinki Accords opened up a dialogue between the Soviets and America about what happened after the Second World War. Free democratic elections would be established in Soviet puppet states, and the two superpowers would agree to arms reduction deals. Reagan would reverse lots of these policies due to Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, but after Gorbachev took office, the Cold War would die out. In 1991, the Berlin Wall would be turned down and Germany reunited. And 2 months later, the Soviets would fall, marking the end of the Cold War. The policy of détente reduced tensions between the two superpowers, but a Soviet invasion of Afghanistan nearly brought it back to the tension under what containment had been. To summarize, the policy of containment, which dominated early Cold War foreign policy, increased tension and nearly led to nuclear war, while détente reduced tension as the superpowers came to agreements to ensure peace.